All right, welcome to the preview edition of Ole Miss versus Arkansas. The game's at 11 a.m. Saturday morning on ESPN. This is a back-to-back 11 o'clock games. If you look at the name keys, it's swapped. That's actually Kevin Bohannon over there. Yeah, yeah, it's hard to do that. And he is not Jake Thomas, but Jake Thomas we're going to do another stream that he's going to come in and actually be best of the West. But this is the preview edition of the Ole Miss-Arkansas game. And I guess to start this all off, we're trying to get Kevin out here because he got family at home. So he's going to talk a little bit about the Hogs. But I guess what we need to know is, what do you think Arkansas is going to do this weekend?
I think they're going to come out and be physical. Last week was thinks they're ahead of where they should be right now. I had Arkansas at 3-2 right now. I did not think they could beat Texas and Texas A&M. That's saying a lot. Arkansas has come out. They played physical, and they've played their brand of football. Now, they got exposed last week. The three-down linemen will only work if you're more physical than the other team. Alabama has been successful over the past umpteen years under Nick Saban running a 3-4 defense because they have three-down linemen that can take on double teams and not get pushed into the linebackers. Arkansas couldn't do that last week. I think, and last year in the Ole Miss game, that's when you saw the three-down drop 8, and it's been widely talked about ad nauseum. It's not going to be the same game on Saturday. Arkansas is going to come out. Yeah, they're probably going to have three-down linemen, but you're going to see a lot of variations of it. We said on the Hog Talk podcast, you can see a 3-3-5, you can see a 3-2-6, you could see a 3 with a jack, which is in Arkansas's starting lineup. If you look on the defensive side of the ball, they have a jack position, which is a hybrid linebacker / defensive end. So they're going to come out, they're going to be physical, and they'll have to because that's how Alabama, that was their recipe last weekend and running all over Ole Miss. Missed tackles, things like that. Arkansas cannot afford to start 1st and 15, 1st and 20 like they did on the road again. That puts Kendall Briles in a bind, puts the offense, puts KJ Jefferson in a bind. He hasn't thrown more than 23 passes in a game this year. Ideally, you want the ratio to be 2-to-1 rush to pass, and I think that's how Arkansas comes out and competes and wins the ballgame this weekend.
Yeah, the flip side of it is the Ole Miss-Alabama game and the Arkansas-Georgia game. You're looking at probably the only two teams in the country that can do that to those two teams.
That's right.
Everybody says, let's do what Alabama and Georgia did to Arkansas and Ole Miss, and that can slow them down. But the problem is you don't have their players. You can't do – there's 4 and 5 stars all over the field. So they can do things other teams really can't do. So I think this is going to be an interesting game. I think Arkansas is going to – they're going to start out in more of the P and the RPO like they did last year to try to mess with Matt Corral. And they're willing to give the runaway early, but hoping that Ole Miss will self-destruct. Now, if you look there, Ole Miss is down an offensive lineman this week, and – that can't be understated. Caleb Warren's a great run blocker and is responsible for a lot of our 250 yards a game. But I think the team that establishes their will and the game is played the way they want to play is going to win the game. If it's going to be fast and frantic, Ole Miss has an obvious advantage there. That means they're probably front running, and Arkansas isn't built to catch up. They're kind of a modern-day wishbone team due to personnel. But
they really
Arkansas,
are. Yeah. They really are, and I think you and I saw last weekend where Lane Kiffin, it was 4th down or touchdown. That's how he wanted to establish their will early in the game. He was not going to accept field goals. He knew that at the end of the day that wasn't going to do it. So he was able to take those chances early on, maybe get some momentum and get some touchdowns out of it. I think, and you saw the same thing last year in the Arkansas-Ole Miss game. He was going for it on 4th down, and it beat him a couple of times. Will he change it? Probably not, because that's who he is, and he's going to live and die by it, and you got to respect him for that. Arkansas, everybody keeps asking me this week, and I've gone on a couple other shows, how are they going to react? What's the worst thing they could do? And I say the worst thing they could do is think they're going to do the same thing they did to Ole Miss last year, because they're not going to come out and do the same thing to Arkansas this year. Corral hasn't thrown an interception this year. He's played at Heisman level up until last week. So he's still going to be the same quarterback. Plus, you got that stable of running backs averaging 250 yards. They ran for 250 yards last year at Arkansas. So there's a lot that Arkansas has to do to win this ball game, and it's not. And I see this, Stephen, as more of a rivalry than what a lot of Arkansas fans want to see it as. There's been a lot of close games. Matt Jones and Eli Manning were at the Arkansas Touchdown Club, or Little Rock Touchdown Club, on Monday, reliving the 7 overtime game for 20 years ago. So you have a lot of games that have a lot of history. I think the series is 18-14 Arkansas since they came into the league. And over the past 15 years, it's been 9-6 Arkansas, with Ole Miss having the longest win streak with 4, I believe. And Arkansas has done the same thing. So it's a close series, and anything can happen, really. We've seen that. 4th and 25 it was not too long ago. So for Arkansas fans that are coming out, you may not know what to expect, and none of us do, but expect them to come out and play hard under Sam Pittman.
Yeah. And expect weird things to happen. Everybody talks about 4th and 25 happen. That was kind of repaying Arkansas, the Fates did, because in 1989, the hit happened where Ron Dickerson on the 1-yard line gets tackled and somehow doesn't go out of bounds, and Quinn Grovey doesn't get another play, and that dooms the Hogs in Little Rock. This game used to be Jackson and Little Rock when you guys were in the Southwest Conference. Yeah, it was a
great rivalry. Huh? My first Ole Miss game was at Little Rock. 17-3 Ole Miss win, 1990.
Yeah, and it's a really cool series, and it's one of those things that even though Arkansas, they tried to pigeonhole rivals on Arkansas. That's something they just seem to do in the SEC. Yeah. But the main rival that they have has been for the last 30 years Ole Miss. That game, that game has meant a little bit more. There was history before the conference and what was going in. So I'm looking forward to this game. I think that it's going to be fun. I did a show earlier in the week that if Ole Miss had a running quarterback, if John Rice Wapumee was playing quarterback, our offense would look just like Arkansas. If Arkansas had a Matt Corral, their offense would look just like us. It's the Baylor system. It's all the same stuff, and that shows the versatility of these offenses.
No doubt. And people keep asking me, are we going to throw the ball more? Are we going to throw the ball more? And I said, well, it's not it's Arkansas. I'm not out there, guys. But I think KJ Jefferson, they want to get him established early in the game. If you look at Georgia Southern and Texas A&M when they came out and were on fire, first down passing was the biggest part of that. At one point against Georgia Southern, Arkansas was 6 of 7 for 200 yards. They have stretched the field into the boundaries multiple times. So they can do it. It's just a matter of fact, or will they?
Yeah, and do they want to? Because what they've been doing has been successful.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the passing game do it, but you beat Texas and Texas A&M playing this offense, this running game, and try and hit them on a play-action deep pass. Honestly, it does look a little bit like the Ken Hatfield days in Arkansas. Run, play-action pass, and go deep.
It does. You look at the end of the day, and Arkansas has 13 pass attempts. That was against Georgia, I think. And I've gone back and say this, and I'll say it again. If you can run 60 plays and it's 40-20 rush to pass, you probably had a good day at the office if you're Arkansas.
Yeah. And I think the atmosphere really got to Ole Miss and Arkansas last week. The first time playing on the road, really packed stadiums, and a big game. Ole Miss and Arkansas are not going to play bigger games this season than that game as far as the build up to it. So I just think it was a little bit of a rite of passage and what's going on. Now, what do you see Arkansas doing in this game? What can we expect from the Arkansas offense? More of the same?
I would say more of the same, but they've won every game differently. They came out against Georgia Southern, sputtered a little bit. They started opening it up, against Rice. They sputtered. They ended up getting multiple guys involved in the running game. Dominic Johnson scored a late touchdown. So they kind of had to come from behind that game. Arkansas comes out against Texas, punches them in the mouth early. They were able to impose their will in the front seven. And then against Georgia Southern, KJ Jefferson had 300 yards passing by halftime. So they were able to stretch the field. I think the one thing that Kendall Briles does a really good job of is taking what the defense gives them. I think if you see a lot of 5-man boxes on Saturday, Arkansas is going to run the ball. They're going to get the ball out to Traylon Burks in space, Traylon Smith. I do think they have to get the running backs more involved in the passing game. Traylon Smith was deadly last year on screen passes, swing passes, angle routes, flat passes, whatever you want to call for him. He was deadly with that. They have guys. A.J. Green scored a touchdown against Texas A&M on a wheel route. I think you need to see more of that, and they need a second wide receiver to step up. It hasn't happened yet. They have no tight end play. So you almost have to have a lot of the same stuff that they've done. It just may be a different variation of it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think Ole Miss similarly is going to take what the defense gives them. They tried to force the pass last year against light boxes, and that came back and jumped back and get them. Now this week it looks like Jerry and Ely might not play. He apparently he was in concussion protocol in midweek.
Yeah.
But that just means, honestly, to put this in perspective, Snoop Connor's probably going to start. So you're going to get the physical battering ram.
Yeah, between the tackles. That's what you need. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably going to give us what we need, but I don't look for Matt Corral to necessarily force it. I do expect Arkansas to try and heat Matt Corral up its spaces. They might look like a 3-man normal box, but one of the box safeties might be coming in different angles, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Jalen Catalani, the Ole Miss game last year, we knew he was good. That's when he really came out, and the fan base started to see what that young man could do. He's been non-existent the last 2 weeks. He made a couple tackles here, a couple tackles there, but he hasn't been around the ball as much as we would expect him to be as a fan base. Now, they can do that. They can have Greg Brooks off the edge, Hayden Henry, if they're in a 3-3 with one of those linebackers that's flexed out, maybe on a tight end, and when the matchup is there, they can roll the safety down and blitz the linebacker. Expect some of that. They're going to run. I think they'll have more zone blitzes this week. That really, I think, would be their best option in messing with Corral. I don't think Hudson Clark's going to be on the field enough to get 3 interceptions, so he doesn't have to worry about that. I've said all along, he's not going to throw 6 again, guys, and he's not going to probably throw half of that. So get that out of your head right now. But they have to play physical football at the point of attack, and I think that Arkansas's best chance to win. I still think Ole Miss will score points. I think Arkansas at the end of the day could most likely wear them down and win 38-31, 38-34, something like that, which is a score we've seen lately. I think it was 37-34 a couple years ago, 37-33. Those type of games are always expected when these two teams take the field.
Yeah, it's good. Expect wild stuff. I'm looking forward to this game. It is an early kickoff for Ole Miss. I am concerned because this will be there. Y'all did 11 o'clock last week, 11 o'clock this week. This will be the first time they've had to tune up for that. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. I'm looking forward to some weird things happening. I just think the main thing is basically with Arkansas, jump on Arkansas. If you get up 14-0, it's probably over. If they get up 14-0, it's probably over. So if there's a 14-0, that's probably going to be the winner of the game.
Yeah, and we saw it last year. Arkansas got up 20-0 at halftime, and in Sam Pittman's first year, I'm sitting at home going, "Hey guys, this ain't over yet." That's Lane Kiffin on the other side. That's not Paul Johnson running the flex bone or the veer. So I think I agree with you on that. If Ole Miss getting a big lead early bodes well for Ole Miss. Arkansas, I think they can put in an icebox mode, as I like to call it back in the day, my 8-minute offense. If I had to run 8 minutes off the clock, we called it icebox. So put it in the freezer, put it on the shelf, and let's roll.
Yeah, and in my other shows that are going on, I do refer to Arkansas a couple times. They're front runners, and I don't mean that negatively.
Right, yeah.
But if they have control and they can control what you're going to do with that defense, they're second in the nation in passing for a reason. They're good back there. They have some good defensive linemen that can get out the passers. So the trick is you can beat them with the run game, but if they get you at a point where you can't run the ball, you're in trouble. And that's what happened last year in Fayetteville. They made Ole Miss a little bit one-dimensional. And even though we ran for 250 yards, we didn't really start doing that until the second half.
Yeah, it was more after the fact. And that's the goal of every defense out there is to make somebody one-dimensional. But in the age of the offenses that you see now, they're so dynamic and so wide open. What does that really mean? Does that mean you take away the vertical game? Does that mean you take away the RPO options and your linebackers are playing read more than they are anything else and just waiting? So if you're going to come out and attack, you need to come out and attack. You can't just halfway do it.
Yeah. I think it's also important for Ole Miss in the pass game. Do not let KJ Jefferson get comfortable.
Yeah.
That could be – he was seeing shadows a little bit last week against Georgia, as most teams do. So if he has problems, Sam Williams leads the SEC in sacks. If you can get after the guy a little bit. So if they commit penalties, if they get behind the sticks, that's advantage Ole Miss defense. They're just not made to make those yards up.
Yeah, and Arkansas is one of the most penalized teams in the nation right now. They had 13 accepted last week, 2 offsetting, and I think 3 more that were not accepted. So they were flagged 18 times last week against Georgia on the road. They get half of that this week, they're still going to lose. You can't do that because you're looking at 70 to 90 yards worth of penalties at that point.
Yeah, that's what do they call it? Unattributed yardage or whatever.
Yeah,
field position.
unattributed yardage.
The hidden yardage.
Yeah,
that can happen. So I'm looking forward to that. Then Kevin, thank you for coming by today. This has been the quick Ole Miss Arkansas preview. Normally we do an hour preview live stream, but Kevin's got some stuff he has to do. So
we broke it down pretty quick.
Yeah, we broke it down pretty quickly. And then coming up here in just a second, if you're watching, at about 8:30, we're going to hit Jake Thomas and talk about the actual best of the West. So stick around for that. But thank you very much, Kevin.
Thanks, David.